Hi, my dear Astro family. So today we are going to be looking at the spring equinox chart. And I set the chart for USA, so I can give you a bit of an update what I see there. But I would like to mention that it's highly important that this video is more educational rather than starting a political debate. Please refrain yourself from it because we are not here to be the supporters of Trump or others and so forth. So I don't wish to get my channel to that level. So please do so. So we've got the spring equinox happening on the 20th of March, 2025. And every single year, basically, the sun moves into the sign of Aries, and that would be the start of a new astrological year. And basically, the spring equinox chart shows what to expect on a global level in the next 3 to 12 months. You might be wondering when it is free and when it is 12 a month. Well, it highly depends on the quality of the rising sign. So if it's a cardinal one, then it usually lasts for a shorter period of time. And then if it's a fixed sign, for example, then it would be lasting for a year. If it's mutable, then it's simply just about 6 months altogether. But I don't want to get into the rules as much. Now, as I said earlier, I have set the chart to see what to expect in the US. However, this can be set to any of the countries. So if you are in London, for example, you can set the chart to London and then you get clues about what to expect in England and so forth. Also, remember, I'm not focusing on the Aries archetype, as of course that would be the case every single year. What we need to be focusing on, what is the most important, is the aspect to the sun, the house position of the sun, the rising sign, the ruler of the rising sign, and even the dispositor of the sun. So basically where Mars is. And also you can be focusing on the moon as well. And that altogether will give us a general picture of what to expect in the political world, because the sun also represents leadership. So, but without before we actually get going with this short material, I wanted to let you know that you have got a chance to work with me, study with me, as well as to have a personal reading if you are in need of a bit of a guidance. You might want to go and check out on my website. My upcoming course or webinar is actually going to be about Mercury and Jupiter, because there is a lot of coloration going on between them two. Of course, Mercury is the natural ruler of Gemini, and Jupiter is the natural ruler of Sagittarius. So they are on the same polarity, and therefore we have to be able to bring them together, especially if you have got an aspect. The very latest webinar I did was on Neptune and Mars aspect. We spoke about it for a good 90 minutes. We broke it down, and I think it was quite a big hit. So we are going to be approaching Mercury and Jupiter aspects a little bit in the chart and how we can work in the bestest possible way with them. But without any further ado, let's get started. So as you can see on the screen, we've got an Aquarius rising sign in the USA for this particular ingression. Aquarius is a fixed sign, so it indicates that this is going to be the entire year. We're going to feel it the entire year. And Aquarius is associated with freedom, detachment, but also the creation of brotherhood and sisterhood. Also, it represents movement, social unrest, and to a certain extent, even it represents anxiety as well. Now, we will be using both rulers as well. So we are going to be looking at where Saturn and Uranus are, because we are talking about on mundane level. However, I tend to use the traditional rulers when it comes to a personal chart. But in a country's chart, I like using the outer planets as well as co-rulers, because they can give definitely an additional layer to our interpretation. So what is standing out in this chart? Well, to start with, we do have got Pluto in Aquarius. So it is clearly showing that we have a lot of changes going on or happening in the USA, and even their political approach. In this chart, the rising sign would represent the approach kind of like the politicians have towards the country. And it looks like we all want freedom there. Now, one of the rulers is Saturn, which is in the sign of Pisces in the second house. So there is a lot of concern about finances, resources, maybe the loss or gain of resources, but the banking environment as well as investment topic. So a lot of financial concerns and kind of like what we have within the country and what we don't have. So the second house would represent tradings as well. It really feels like with the Pluto in the sign of Aquarius, that would be more to do with wanting to gain power. But also with often Pluto, there are certain type of hidden motives going on as well. Because Aquarius is the sign of information, like technological information and so forth. Pluto is a planet which shows something that is buried and behind the scene, taboo topics. So it looks like there are some buried information that might come up in the next 1 year. Also, I cannot miss the fact that we have got Pallas Athene actually on the rising sign. And Pallas Athene represents battle plans, negotiations, and even peacemaking as well. So Pallas Athene is someone who doesn't want to get into a fight unless it's very necessary. So she's trying to come up with some tactics first, and then it tries to negotiate, it tries to win people over rather than kind of like this attacking type of scenario. But when it feels like we have to be in the winning seat, she is ready to get into a battle. So, on one hand, this is actually talking to me about military readiness. Maybe we are going to be hiring a lot more soldiers. We are going to be buying up guns, or we are going to be negotiating about certain type of production work. This is also echoed, by the way, by Mars being in the sixth house, which is also somehow, on one hand, can show that there is going to be quite a big focus on the military positions of the country. And then even when you look at the sun is in the third house, which is very much about a lot of talks going on. So it looks like there is going to be a lot of talk about military readiness. But also this could talk to us about there is a lot of talk going on about medical situations, healthcare situations within the country as well. Now, of course, this Mars is in a fall position. It is still a little bit slow, and unfortunately, it is still out of bound. So it could show that there is a lot of angry type of feeling, a lot of temperament going on currently. So also it is leading me to believe that there is a social unrest happening in the next 1 year. This is also echoed, by the way, by Uranus being in the fourth sign. And the fourth sign represents something to do with the people, basically the habitants. So it shows certain type of a social unrest. I can imagine certain type of demonstrations with it. But unfortunately, this could even indicate certain type of natural disasters as well. The other thing that is actually standing out to me is that we have got Juno on the MC. And Juno is the asteroid of partnership, but also contractual agreements. And Juno is about to go retrograde. So basically, this is stationary. It looks like that we have got certain type of contractual agreements that are not necessarily moving forward. It is kind of like standing a little bit at a standstill. We do not know what to do with this contract, but then it is going retrograde. And Juno will be actually in the sign of Sagittarius for a little while, and then it's going to be shifting back into the sign of Scorpio. So this is something that I spoke about in my weekly video. But when Juno is basically in the sign of Sagittarius, it is all about how to expand our connections. It is focusing on a better future, making kind of like better connections with others. And then now it is going retrograde. So this somehow shows to me that certain type of connections within the USA might start falling apart. And then what happens is that at the end of the month, beginning of April, it is going to be moving back into the sign of Scorpio. So on one hand, it is talking to us about having to look at our connections with others on a deeply uh, on a deep level. Maybe this is also talking to us about having to kind of examine our financial connections with others too. So Juno, known as the asteroid of marriage and government or commitment, but also it governs over equality as well, or even the power dynamics within relationship. And because Juno is slowing down, basically we are meant to be reassessing these areas in our life. And I would also say that with Juno being here, it's kind of like looking at how the partners are committed or how we are committed to certain type of relationships. The question could be coming up here whether I can trust you or can we build this relationship on certain type of a mutual respect? Do we have the same principles? Do we have the same values, for example? Or are we going to have to be upgrading things here? So it looks like that there is a certain type of an honesty going on. And I'm going to let you know that, listen, it really feels like that you are not honest with me. And that needs to change. Juno, because it's a contractual agreement, we've got two parties in it. So it even can represent certain type of like, I don't feel fairly treated. It could even indicate certain type of legal cases or legal battle going on between two parties as well, letting you know that I feel like I'm treated unfairly or there are certain type of imbalances going on because I put this amount of money into this business, you put this amount of money into this business, and I feel like this is actually not fair. But Juno goes retrograde in the sign of Sagittarius, which is one of the signs that is connected to independence, freedom. And it could feel like that in this connection, I cannot be authentic. So there is a lot of, but also Sagittarius represents the mentors and the teachers as well. So it could indicate that my connection with certain type of mentors are kind of like changing, or it could even indicate that we are kind of like in a long distance relationship, let's say on a personal level. But also maybe I am making certain type of commitments to a country which is really far away from me. You can think of Juno as being an ally. So it looks like that these alliances are based on certain type of a spiritual or philosophical belief system that are about to be um, formed or kind of like a contractual break, basically. Now, Juno will be shifting back into the sign of Scorpio. So we are going to be looking at how vulnerable we are as a country, whether I can trust you, the break of promise, the break of trust. You said something to me and then it's not getting delivered. Also, this is how much of a control and power I've got over others or in this particular relationship. And it looks like this is all about to be changing. So Juno is very important, I believe, in this particular chart. It really feels like that we might be reminded that we made a commitment previously, and now we must live up to it. Moon also conjunct Juno. Now, it's interesting because we have got two female archetypes are kind of like making a pact here. So, like it's a female leadership type of energy, or it could actually talk to us. I mean, I'm not too sure what it would indicate, for example, in the US now that we've got two female planets are kind of coming together, but it could represent two female who are actually sitting down and making a commitment, for example, to each other. But surely these two combinations together is talking to us about a particular, like, heartfelt type of conversation and connections with someone. The other thing that is standing out to me is, of course, Neptune on 29 degree. So this is on an anaretic degree. Anaretic degree means that the planet is actually ready to move into the next sign, but it has got kind of like a last um, business to complete. Neptune is the planet of yearning. So it's all about wanting to create an ideal financial world because it's in the second house. But also it shows certain type of critical issues with money and finances as well with the 29 degree. And Neptune is the planet of inflation, deflation. So we might be seeing some inflation issues also. And the other thing that I would like to actually mention to you is that when you look at Vesta, I mean, first of all, Vesta is in a kite formation in this particular chart. Um, Basically, the kite is just think about how a kite looks like, right? But it is happening with Mars, Vesta, Saturn, and Uranus. So, kite is something which definitely represents freedom, but it is very much focused on Vesta. And the reason why I wanted to touch base on that because Vesta is also stationary in the chart. Basically, Vesta will be going retrograde on the 22nd of March. So this is already stationing. It is already kind of like, again, at a standstill. So Vesta is something to do with focus. And when we have got Vesta in the sign of Scorpio, you can be highly passionate. You can also be highly intuitive as well. And you can get really obsessed. So one of the topics that pops up with that is that am I too obsessed with something and I'm going to have to examine that situation? Or am I too determined, too daring, too kind of bold as well? Or potentially you are lacking those type of traits. So Vesta being retrograde at the moment, on one hand, would indicate to me having to re-examine whether you are focusing on the right things or not. Um, Also with Vesta, which actually represents something to do with the sacred mission. It could really feel like that my job, for example, as a country or as a leader, is that I am having to um, kind of like bring financial success to the nation, or all I'm focusing on is power and money. But sometimes, I mean, this Vesta is actually having a trine to Saturn in the sign of Pisces. Sometimes we have to be focusing a little bit more on compassion as well. I would say that with Vesta, we're going to have to look at what is sacred to us. And also it is telling us that somehow we're going to have to reconnect with certain type of promises and with that inner kind of like motivation that we had before. And maybe the way how it could work is if we deepen certain type of relationship with others. And that is coming from a Venus and Pluto sextile, which is also happening on the very same day, by the way, when Vesta stations retrograde on the 21st or the 22nd of March, if we consider Pluto being the modern ruler of Scorpio. Of course, when we are talking about the sun in the sign of Aries, as I said, it's not worth having a look at it from an archetypical point of view because it's going to be happening every single year. But that is talking to us about that your energy level is getting renewed. This is the reason why we are talking about kind of like a new astrological year. And maybe we are a lot more passionate about protection of the home country because Mars is in the sign of Cancer. And maybe we are ready to roll up the sleeves and defend what's ours. I also want to mention that Sun just made recently a conjunction to Neptune on 29 degrees. So as soon as the Sun moves into the sign of Aries, it looks like that the task has already been kind of like given to the Sun as well, which could actually talk to us about that we feel a little bit at a loss. We are kind of like a little bit more on the narcissistic side. We are kind of like just floating around. We are unsure of who we are, what we want, how to get there. And then this sun moving into the sign of Aries is showing us that we're going to have to gain certain type of clarity. And the clarity is coming from the fact that the sun is going to be making a conjunction to both Venus and Mercury. But I'm going to be making a separate video about that because the sun and Venus conjunction are surely quite an exciting one. So it's going to be worth an exploration. I think this is just a short video that I wanted to look at. The other chart actually that I looked at is Canada. And one of the reasons why I wanted to do that is because obviously we've got all these trading issues going on currently. And the chart is going to be very similar here as well. With Canada, we would have an Aquarius rising sign. But one of the good things that we could be doing is that kind of like doing a synastry between the English chart and the given country. And I'm not going to be kind of like talking about that. But there are certain type of differences here. So, for example, in Canada, the MC is actually falling onto 29 degree of Scorpio. And this is about endings and new beginnings in a way. But in order for us to start fresh, we're going to have to end something as well. So the energetic degree, as I mentioned earlier, with Neptune, it is talking to us about certain type of critical issues. Often it amplifies something. And this is about who is in control, who has got the power. So when we look at that midheaven, which is ruled by Pluto and Mars, both of them are very much the planet that is focusing on, in a way, success. And obviously, their position is not going to be changing. So that's not going to be a different one. And also, obviously, because of Aquarius rising sign, as I said, the chart is very similar. Again, there is quite a huge focus going on finances and so forth in Canada as well. So one of the difference is that we have got this midheaven on 29 degree and Neptune actually having a trine to it. It really looks like that Canada is about to be making some um, financial commitments or financial promises or even financial collaborations with others. But also it could really talk to us about certain type of like financial drainage as well, even with a trine. So, guys, this is what I wanted to mention to you. Oh, the other thing actually I wanted to mention is that as you can see, for example, that because the midheaven is something to do with difference between the two charts mainly, because in USA we've got a midheaven in the sign of Sagittarius, and then in Canada we've got in the sign of Scorpio. So one of the things that I would like to mention there, because with the midheaven being in the sign of Scorpio on 29 degree, by the way, it could more represent something to do with financial crisis situations. Even with Neptune trining that it might indicate that there is certain type of financial losses that we are about to be experimenting or experiencing. So guys, this is a brief video about the ingress. I hope this is giving you a bit of a clarity or even guidance what you can do on a personal level. And as mentioned at the beginning of the video, please refrain yourself from any type of political involvement. This was more of an educational video rather than kind of like spiking you up or getting you angry about something. This is what astrology shows, and hopefully free will win. Have a great week, everyone. See you soon. Bye bye.